Bonjour, namaste, jumbo.
Bienvenidos! Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are beaming out to you and the entire planet from the beautiful, historical, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville. We are so very happy that you are joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by introducing you to authors of fantastic children's books that you are going to want to add to your family or your classroom library. We hope that you'll help us spread the word about reading with your kids by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, YouTube. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Really, really fun show today. Jimmy Vee is here to celebrate Belly Laugh Books, and his latest picture book is called There Are No Dinos Inside This Book. We also have a listen back to a conversation we had with one of our favorite guests, Helena Koo Reed, as she tells us about Zora's seashells. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Fart Boy and Reeky Dog, Dino Doom. Fantastic new graphic novel written by New York Times bestselling author Joan Holub, who's written over 200 amazing books for kids. It's school sleepover at the museum. What could go wrong? Well, how about this? A snack-fueled explosion of garbanzo beans and peanuts unleashes a stink so powerful it brings the dinosaurs back to life. Now, Fart Boy, Reeky Dog, and their friends are in the middle of a dino-sized disaster. They have to solve tricky riddles, find missing bones, and stop the stinkiest villain of all, Professor Gravy Pants. Because if they don't, the dinosaurs could take over. Or worse, they could become Dino Dinner. This action-packed graphic novel is bursting with friendships, adventure, and enough laughs to shake the museum walls. If your kids love superheroes, if they love dinosaurs, and if they love to laugh until they can't breathe, then Fart Boy and Reeky Dog Dino Doom is the book for you. Because sometimes the power to save the world comes from the unlikeliest place. Grab your copy today and get ready for a reading adventure that's truly dynamite. Join us right now from Orlando in Florida. You might have heard of it. It's a nice little place. Our guest is here today to celebrate his brand new series. It's called the first book in the series. There Are No Dinos Inside This Book. Please welcome to the show, Jimmy Vee. Jimmy, how are you?
I'm doing really good, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I'm delighted to have you on. Jimmy describes himself on his website as an author, a dad, and a weirdo. Tell me, where did you... I love that you're celebrating your weirdness. Tell us all about that. What makes Jimmy Vee weird?
Well, I think I have this weird way of putting things together creatively. And I think that comes from something that you're very familiar with, my background in magic. Mm-hmm. My background in ventriloquism, which is an unusual and not often seen art form, ancient art form, and in my background as a marketer and marketing copywriter, all of these things kind of come together to create these very weird, I call it weird, which is just really kind of funny, silly, and unique to kids, ideas that I then end up in my kids' books somehow.
Yeah. Well, I love that you and I both didn't listen to all the people, because I'm sure you had a lot of people around you saying, dude, you can't make a living doing this stuff. Get a real job. Put a suit and tie on. And both of us said, nay.
That's right. my mom, I never really told my mom I wanted to be a magician. It just kind of evolved that way. And actually, I didn't really start doing anything ventriloquism or magic for real until I was out. I left the house and was in college. I was 18 when I started actually practicing ventriloquism. And then through ventriloquism, I met a whole bunch of magicians, and they started teaching me magic. And then I ended up at, magician ring meetings, and, it just kind of evolved to get those two things evolved together. And, even when I started my marketing company much later on, I decided that I wasn't going to do that conventionally either. I wasn't going to put on a suit and tie, and I was just going to use the creativity forward approach and, really kind of engage people with personality and a little bit of wonder, right? That's what we do.
Jimmy, you were telling me before we hit record that you wrote this book based on a children's magic principle. Tell us about that, please.
And that children's magic principle is the look, no, see principle. The one where you do something, the magician is holding a prop or doing something and says that it can't happen or it won't happen or it doesn't happen. And then the kids see it happen and the magician doesn't see it happen. And then the magician says, oh, it didn't happen. And the kids say, yes, it did. And then you create this environment of back and forth that the kids go crazy over.
Yeah.
And I use that principle over and over and over again in my shows. And I'm sure you have too. And one day it just came to me, like, how do I put that energy into a book? And that was where this book came from. And as you can see on the cover here, it's a look, no, see book.
Oh, cool.
And inside in the copyright page, it talks about the look, no, see principle and how the book series is connected to that. And really, so what happens is, the narrator is saying there are no dinos inside of this book. I got rid of them all. And then the kids are seeing the signs of dinosaurs inside the book. And then as the kids are seeing that, the narrator is reacting to the kids seeing them as if they're having a conversation as they would in a magic show. Yeah. And him saying, no, you're not seeing that. That's not what that is. That's something else. And it just builds and builds and builds until the narrator actually sees what the kids see. And there's his reaction.
Yeah.
So that was the genesis of the idea here.
Yeah. And one of the things I love, I'm imagining my kids are still young and I get a copy of, look, there are no dinos in this book. And I'm reading it like you just demonstrated. You can't sit back and read just like, oh, there are no dinos. You have to really get into it.
Right. It's one of those books that's very interactive and very, you can't just read it straight.
Right. Yeah. Tell me the idea to sit down and write a book, because that was something that I found really challenging when people were encouraging me, take this story that you tell in the show. It's really cool. You could turn that into a picture book. For me, it was difficult because when you're telling a story in front of an audience or you're doing a look, no, see, you're hearing it and you're getting the immediate feedback. When you're writing a book, you're by yourself and you're not there when the kids are reacting to it. How did you I wasn't able to solve that problem for me. How did you solve that?
Man, I do copywriting for a living, so I'm used to writing, to an audience that I can't see or hear. And often a lot of the writing that I've done, in my past and still currently today is mass media advertising, a lot of radio and television copywriting. And, you're broadcasting a message to a wide audience when you're writing something like that and trying to convey the emotion, there in your message about your product or your service or your business. So I think I had an advantage that way, like that as you have I know, had so many hours in front of kids performing that I know what their reaction sounds like.
Uh-huh.
And I'm thinking, as I'm writing, I'm always thinking in my head, envisioning this being on stage, right? Like me doing this, me being the narrator and being on a stage and performing this and how they would react, right?
Okay.
And so I'm trying to capture that. Like, how would they react to that? And then how would I react as a performer in that scenario? What would I say back? How would I react to that? What would be and obviously every magician performer has their own character, right? And so I'm looking at it through the lens of my magic persona, my magician persona, when I do these kinds of shows, when I do my kid shows, which has a very kind of like, I don't know, unreliable narrator persona, like kind of full of yourself, but really not really. And they know that you're kind of being sarcastic or you're unsure of yourself a little bit but trying to overcompensate, and they see all of that and find it funny because, kids find, adults who make mistakes quite humorous.
Yeah.
And, so then all of those things that go through my head when I'm coming up with ideas for books. And then secondly, when I actually sit down and write them. And this book in particular, because it is so closely related to the performance, like I tried to write it through that lens and almost create that same performance style in it. And almost as if the parent reading the book is that narrator, right? Even though it's not, but it comes across that way because the narrator's talking, to the kid, right? So as the parents are reading it, they're almost talking to the kid, like, what? And the kid's saying, there's a dino. And then the parent reads the book and it's like, that's not a dinosaur. That's, that's an alligator or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. It's fantastic. I don't know if you experienced this when the pandemic hit. I had a school, I was supposed to be at, and then they said, well, perform over Zoom. And, so I did. And so I have this trick where, it's a variation of the egg bag, and I have an egg bag with a white mesh front. So when the egg appears, you can see it drop into the bag. And, so I had a kid, I said, you're holding an egg, you're feeling it, and throw it up in the air. It's going to land in this bag. And every single time I do the trick, the egg appears and the kids go crazy. So I'm doing this trick over Zoom and the egg appears and there's nothing. And I'm like, humana. And then after 3 of the longest seconds in my life, everybody, all 100 faces I'm looking at the screen go, great. And I'm like, there's a delay. I don't know if I can handle this.
Oh man, that's, but honestly, depending on the size of your crowd, there's a delay in an audience too, as it ripples through from the front of the room to the back of the room. Yeah. But you don't get that instant one, at least with that case, you get the front row reacts right away, and then it might take time for the rest of them to react, but you got that feedback loop right there. Yeah. I did notice some of that. I didn't do a ton of Zoom shows, so I didn't have that full experience. I can imagine it's dramatically different. I mean, that's why performers cannot replace the live performance environment. Like,
tell me,
you have the sickness to be in front of that crowd.
Absolutely. Hey, as a proprietor of Belly Laugh Books, you love making people laugh and hearing people. I'm curious if you have this kind of weirdness that I have. There are jokes that I know are going to get over, but there's a couple of jokes that I know are never going to get a laugh, but I'm determined. I do it anyways because there's usually one person in the back of the room that will get it. And when I do the joke and it dies, but I hear that one person in the back laugh, I'm like, yes, my life is full. I love this.
Well, obviously you're doing that joke because you like it. And I have those jokes too, that I think they're funny. They make me laugh. Sometimes somebody gets it and it makes them laugh because they got that piece, they got that humor. And then I used to do a lot of shows with my wife would come and take photos of the kids while I would perform. And then we would give those photos to the parents or the person who hired us. And she knew where all the laugh points were. So she really was able to get great shots because she knew when the laughs were coming, and she could prep for the photos. But there were definitely jokes in there that I delivered for her.
Yeah.
Even though she's heard it 9,000 times. But they weren't really for anyone else, just to make her and I laugh, you know, and,
yeah.
You know, you have jokes as a performer for, you know, you have kids of different audience ages. You have to have jokes that work for different age groups. Like it's always this balance between, you know, who all the audience members are. Right. And, you know, the material making it an enjoyable experience for all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you can write universal jokes, those are great, but sometimes not everything is universal.
Exactly. Yeah. Doing a show for first graders is a lot different than doing shows for eighth graders or kids in high school.
And it always, you know, obviously, I know you've experienced this. If we could separate them into light groups, it's always better. It's always a better show if we know who the audience is and we can condense who they are. Like we can say, oh, these are 4 and 5 year olds and these are 7 and 8 year olds, because 7 and 8 year olds different than 4 and 5, different between teens, right? So if we can compartmentalize the groups, great. But sometimes you just can't, you know.
Well, one of the things that I found in Latin American countries, Puerto Rico, El Salvador, they love it. Here in the States, they find that schools love more intimate. So maybe 200-300 kids, and you know, but down in Puerto Rico, down in El Salvador, it's like everybody's coming in. We got 1,800, 2,500 kids, and all ages, and they just. Some places here in the States, it's like, we can't have the kids go too crazy. We have to, you know, this is still a school. Whereas in Puerto Rico, El Salvador, it's like, go for it. Just kill it and just get everybody, you know, excited.
Bouncing off the walls.
Yes. I love it. Chaos. Exactly.
Well, Hook No C is perfect for that. It creates chaos.
You have another book called Petey Perfect Pant. I love the titles of your books.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
You know, titles, from a marketing perspective, titles and covers are critical. Like,
yep.
It doesn't matter how good the book is if the title and cover aren't good. Those are the headline and billboard for your book.
Right.
Because, you know, especially if you do online sales, which most of us do these days, you know, that people are making buying decisions off of a postage stamp thumbnail of a book. So you better have good titles and good covers. Petey Perfect Pants. I love alliteration. Yeah. I love it. I've always loved it. I loved listening to it as a kid. I work it into my advertising copy, and as a children's book writer, I use it as much as humanly possible. I use alliteration and onomatopoeia. And of course, rhythm and rhyme, you know, when appropriate. This book is not written in rhyme, but it does have a rhythm. You know, I try to write I am a musician as well. So I have a melodic sensibility. And copy is, when you're writing advertising copy, the best copy tends to have a melodic flow to it as well. So this book is another, I guess, encapsulation of all of my weirdness. The fact that this is a book about a sock puppet, and a kid who makes a sock puppet because he's bad at making friends. So he makes his own sock puppet to be his friend. And I can relate to that story. I also, as a puppet loving kid, tried to make and did make puppets that were my friends, right? And this is kind of that encapsulation of that idea. And this book, the other reason I wrote this book was because my second book was a nonfiction book on how to do ventriloquism using a sock puppet. So I said, you know what? Every kid wants to learn ventriloquism, knows what ventriloquism is, is interested in that. The learning ventriloquism is a little more advanced, so it requires an older age child to get it. So I wanted to bring the sock puppet in earlier, right? So like make it fiction, bring early kids in, younger kids into the world of puppets and sock puppets. So this book can be ultimately packaged together with the other, and they can be kind of like a box set. And I just love puppets, and sock puppets are easy to do. So
yeah. And the other book that you're referring to for the folks who are listening is How to Make Your Sock Talk. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. How to Make Your Sock Talk, A Beginner's Guide to Ventriloquism. It's the only book on ventriloquism written for kids. You know, and when I was young, I saw a ventriloquist came to my school when I was in 3rd grade, and he had a full-sized professional ventriloquist dummy, and he did magic and ventriloquism, and that ventriloquist puppet blew my mind. The magic blew my mind too, but the ventriloquist puppet blew my mind, and I wanted one of those puppets so bad from that point on. And I did get one of these toy ventriloquist puppets from the Sears catalog with the pull string in the back, the Jerry Mahoney, and this one was Howdy Doody, which was odd because Howdy Doody wasn't a ventriloquist dummy, but whatever. They merged puppets together, famous puppets together at the time. And it came with a little teaching on ventriloquism, and I didn't get it. It just didn't make any sense. It wasn't written really for kids. And it just didn't make much sense to me. And I didn't learn how to do it. But I always loved it, and I always loved puppets, and I kept that in magic, and that stayed with me through all these years. And then one day when I was 18, I was in college at the time. I was working. I was actually started making some string puppets in my apartment. Don't ask me why. I don't know. It's not necessarily like a chick magnet or anything. Like, no, I make puppets in my apartment. But I was, and because that's how much I was interested in puppets. And I was walking through the mall one day, and this guy had like a little puppet kiosk, and I stopped by, started talking to the guy, told him I made marionettes. He had a bunch of marionettes there, and we became friends. He was a magician and a ventriloquist. And he did school shows and touring magic shows, and he had this kiosk in the mall, and so we became friends. I'd come by, demonstrate the puppets, and he liked having me around because I'd sell stuff for him for free, And one day he pulled out a ventriloquist puppet, started doing ventriloquism for a kid, like a soft little bird puppet. And I was like I had never seen someone do ventriloquism since that time when I was in 3rd grade. And so the kids are there, like, watching the show, but I'm the biggest fan. I'm sitting over here, mouth agape, watching the guy do ventriloquism. The kids go away, and I go, how did you do that? You've got to teach me how to do that. And he said, oh, it's easy to do. Just get a book from the library. You can learn how to do it. And, I was like, I was kind of disappointed. So I went to the bookstore, Barnes and Noble. We were in the mall, and, they had one book on ventriloquism in the catalog. They didn't even have it in the store. This is back in the day where you had to order books into the store to get them, right? Took 2 weeks for the book to show up. Came back, got the book 2 weeks later, read the book all the way through. Still not, I wasn't a kid, but it still wasn't simple, right? But this was actually a pretty decent, learned the basic techniques, started practicing. Came back like a month later and said, look, I can do ventriloquism. And I showed him, and he was like, you can do it. That's pretty good. And then he invited me over to his place, and he showed me all of his magic gear and all of his ventriloquist puppets, and told me about the community and the ventriloquist museum and the convention and magic conventions. And I was like, I never knew any of this existed. And it just sucked me in for the rest of my life. And it is that those two pivotal moments, 3rd grade and then this moment in the mall, changed the trajectory of my entire life. And that's the kind of impact I believe live performances can make, but also good kids books can have on kids. Because I also can tell you stories about specific children's books that impacted me.
Yeah.
And that stick with me today as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you're talking about with that learning ventriloquist. Yeah. I had a Charlie McCarthy doll. And the little record, the 33 and I didn't get it either. But I didn't run into anybody when I was 18. I was into social work then. So,
well, you must have run into somebody doing magic or something.
I just told the story earlier. I get into clowning. So I didn't tell my parents I was going to be a magician. I was 26 and I had been a social worker for almost 10 years. And I came home and said, I'm going to be a clown.
Well, those at least go hand in hand.
Well, that's the thing. All these variety arts are all a part of the same thing. And you mentioned conventions, magic conventions. Boy, they are a lot of fun. And they're nothing like an educational convention or, vinyl siding convention, whatever. They're just crazy fun. It is a time to learn a lot. I went to a twisting convention. Not that I ever twisted, but there was a performer that's going to be there, so we wanted to do that. And what a weird experience that was. It was fun, but it was very weird.
Yeah, was it here in Florida?
No, it was in Massachusetts. In fact, there was a snowstorm. There's no way my family and I should have gone to this thing because it was a terrible snowstorm. And it was a great show, great performance, but it was kind of treacherous driving home that night. We should have stayed at the hotel.
Balloon twisting is a whole nother universe.
That is a whole nother universe. Yeah. Hey, tell me what's the key to creating a great title? That thing that pulls people in.
Oh man, that's tough. That's tough to nuggetize. I mean, I think if I could nuggetize it, I think we'd all be New York Times bestsellers, right?
Yeah.
I'm always looking for a hook. That's when I'm coming up with a headline or a headline for marketing or a title for a book, and I think about them very similarly in my mind. I'm looking for an angle, a hook. What is this going to be about? How do I convey it clearly but uniquely, right? Mm-hmm. And so everything from, in certain cases, creating a character name, PD Perfect Pants. I mean, and the sock puppet. So I knew I was making a book about a sock puppet and probably a kid, right? I mean, because it's a kid's book.
Right.
That's where it started. And so, I'm thinking, okay, who's this character? What's the problem? Right. And I have sock puppet. So I'm looking for words that are going to be alliterative or melodic with sock puppet. Right. And so I'm playing with these different ideas, and then, okay, it's going to be about a boy who's bad at making friends, and he makes a sock puppet, but it's not perfect. And so he throws it away. And so, okay. So now we've got perfection in with sock puppet. So now we've got some alliteration starting here. Mm-hmm. And how do we combine that with a character name? And so then that's where we ended up with PD Perfect Pants. And, my idea at the beginning of writing the book was to kind of give it a little bit of a Goosebumps flair, where the sock puppet is stuck to the kid's hand and he can't get it off, and it's got a little bit of a creep factor to it, and that is what happens. But I never added the creep factor into it, so it doesn't have any really creepy. I mean, I guess you could say that the fact that he can't get it off might be creepy, but it doesn't. It's not portrayed as creepy in the book. It's portrayed as like he doesn't know what's happening, and you're really not sure. Is it really? Is it is it magic? It kind of comes off that it's magical, right? But that creepy Goosebumps thing was in my head from the beginning, like, and I think that kind of informed some of the decision making along the way, that went into the titles. But then, you go with, look, there are no dinos inside of this book. I was going for the look, no, see. So, with that idea, it's going to be the opposite of what it is, right? And so if there's dinos in this book, then the title is, there are no dinos in this book. Right. And I added this look, because it's got the rhyme with book, right? So you've got the, kind of like bookends, so to say, the look and book at the end. And look is a great word if you want someone to pay attention to your book title or your book cover. And back in the day when I was a kid, there was a coupon book that, used to, when you go to a grocery store or a convenience store, they have racks and they have like little coupon books and the Auto Trader and stuff back in the day. It's going back. Yeah. Where I grew up was a small town. We had, in one of them, they had that little coupon book, and the coupon book had a big look at the top on the coupon book. It was like, it said look, and then embedded in the coupon book was a little, I think it was like a termite or something. It was a character. It was a little termite. He was hidden somewhere in the coupon book, and you had to find him. And every time there was a new coupon book, that he was in a different place. And that always just stuck with me. As a kid, I would get the coupon book to look, and what a great idea to get people engaged in the coupon book looking for this character that's hidden in there. Gamifying the reading of the coupon book. I always thought that was fascinating as a kid, but even more so as an adult, as a marketing guy. Like, those two devices were a really clever way to do that. So that's always stuck in the back of my head. And so when I was coming up with these titles, I was like, it'd be cool to have this look like on that coupon book. Look, at the top of the book. Now, there's nothing hidden in the book, but there kind of is. There's dinosaurs in it.
Yeah.
But that whole idea, some kind of surfaced when I was trying to come up with the title. One of my other books called Professor Nincompoop. Like, again, it's a character name. It's a funny character name. A lot of books are character-driven concepts, and that allows you to sell merchandise and plush and those kinds of things. So, and funny. And I wanted to put poop in a title without putting poop in a title. You know what I mean, right? Because kids like the word poop. They like poop. They like everything about poop. But I'm not writing a poop book. It's just Nincompoop. He's not quite right. He's kind of a bumbling buffoon. Silly, a very silly character. And, so I don't know. That's a bunch of words and a bunch of thoughts, not necessarily a formula. But I don't know if I can formulatize it.
It's a good look at your thought process. And it's a reminder that we have to think about, some of the things we need to think about when we're creating a title, especially for authors who are self-publishing or indie publishing. It is really important. Could be the most important thing. You could have the best book in the world, but if it's not catching eyes, no one's going to buy it. So, hey, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about PD Perfect Pants, and there are no dinos in this book, and all the great stories coming from your weird imagination.
Well, thank you. You can go to bellylaughbooks.com. All of my books are there on my website. And they can research them, learn about them, buy them there. My books are also available on all the bookstore, online shops. My books are through Ingram distribution, so you can pretty much order them anywhere books should be able to order them anywhere books are sold.
We've had a real fun time with the author of There Are No Dinos in This Book. Our guest has been Jimmy Vee. Hey, Jimmy, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on. It's fun.
This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Atmosphere Press. Have you been dreaming about publishing a children's book, one that sparks imagination, creates bedtime memories, and maybe even becomes part of a family's story for years to come? The truth is, great ideas deserve more than a file sitting on your laptop. They deserve to become real books, beautifully designed, professionally published, and ready to reach young readers everywhere. At Atmosphere Press, you get expert guidance through every step of the journey, from editing and illustration to design, distribution, and marketing. So your book doesn't just get published, it gets positioned for success. Whether it's your first picture book, a middle grade adventure, or the story you've been carrying for years, now's the time to bring it to life. Visit atmospherepress.com to send in your manuscript and see what your book could become. That's atmospherepress.com, where your book can go above and beyond even your wildest dreams. Join us once again for the beautiful state of California. Our guest is returning to the show to celebrate her brand new picture book. It is gorgeous, and it's called Sora's Seashells. Please welcome back to the show, Helena Koo-Ree. Hey, Helena, how are you?
Doing really well, Jed. It's so nice to speak with you again and to speak with the audience.
It is, one of the things, Helena, that I'm so grateful for, and there are so many things in my life that I'm grateful for, but since I started this podcast, I've developed friendships with so many different authors, including you, and it is just, it's just a real blessing, and it's so neat to be able to come together and talk about kids' books and talk about the conversations families can have around kids' books. And, it's just a really cool thing.
I totally agree. Even though we've never met in person, I feel like you're one of my friends, and it's always a pleasure to chat about kids' books. It's such a friendly community. One of the things I love about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us all about Sora's Seashells.
Sure. So this is my fourth book, and it is a delight to look at. So I hope you'll get to look at a copy from your local library or from a bookstore. So Sora's Seashells is about a girl with a unique name, and she gets teased about it a little bit at school, about her quote-unquote strange name. And thanks to her grandmother, she learns to appreciate her name. She learns the meaning of her name. She learns to appreciate it. And then she actually even gains the courage to stand up to bullies. And it's really inspired by my own personal experience, because when I was a kid, my name actually was not Helena. It was a different name, and I got teased pretty relentlessly almost every day about it. And so one day I asked my parents, please change my name to something that sounds a little more easy to pronounce, because I had a Korean name before I became Helena.
Well, as somebody who grew up with a very unique name, I can appreciate a lot of what you went through. My name was in Korean, but there weren't. In fact, I don't think I met another person named Jed until I was in my 30s or 40s.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. So I certainly can relate to getting teased and name, and when I was growing up, there was a very popular TV show called The Beverly Hillbillies, and that was one of the characters was there, and there was a song that mentioned the character's name, so I heard that song very often.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's really, as I'm looking back now, I'm looking back and I'm thinking, the third graders, the fourth graders that I went to school with, the first graders who are all Bobby and Richie and Tommy and John. Yeah, I had a really weird name, and I guess it kind of makes sense now. The adult me looks back and says, okay. It makes sense that they would, call attention to it. But that doesn't make it any easier for the first grader with the unusual name or the unique name.
That's true. And whenever I talk about this book to a crowd, one of the questions I get is, well, do you have any advice for anybody who's being teased about their name or being teased about anything really? And my advice would be this: we've all been there. You're not alone. As Jed mentioned, and as I've mentioned, we were teased as kids too. And it's only one moment in time, and that time will pass. And that'll all eventually go away. It's really hard to endure while you're experiencing it. But what you have to do is focus on the good things in your life, the people who love you, and the people who treat you like a gift. And that's one of the things that Sora learns through the course of this story. She learns that her grandmother suggested that her parents name her Sora because Sora means seashell in Korean. And finding a beautiful shell at the ocean is like receiving a wonderful gift from our planet. And so she learns that she is like a gift. And I want everyone listening to know that you are a gift to the people who love you. And so even if you might be a little bit insecure about the things people tease you about, just know that everyone goes through this. Everyone goes through being picked on at some point in their lives, but you are still a gift.
That is great advice, and it's advice that I had heard. It's advice that I've probably shared with others. Certainly advice I can actually hear my grandmother. So I'm imagining that's something you heard from your grandmother. It's absolutely something that I would have heard from my grandmother. I don't know if kids are hearing that much now, because I think what I'm hearing more often is parents running into schools and like demanding this must stop, and tell the kids to stop bullying my kids, and which is a good message. Kids shouldn't be teasing each other and shouldn't be bullying others. But I'm not sure if parents going in there and kind of fighting the fight is the best alternative. I don't know. I'm kind of...
Yeah. I know what you mean. I'm torn about that too, because when I was growing up, we didn't have such heavy involvement of parents as we see nowadays at schools. It's a wonderful thing for parents to be so dedicated and so involved. But, there's a fine line between letting kids kind of go through childhood and experiencing some things that I think most kids experience, and then also balancing it out with, well, what's too much? At what point do adults have to step in to stop bullying and to stop teasing and that sort of thing? Because, unfortunately, one of the things that a lot of kids love to do is to pick on each other. Mm-hmm. I remember wherever I went when I was a kid, whether it was, Disneyland's very close to here, if there weren't any grown-ups around and we were standing in line somewhere, kids would just pick on each other. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's a weird hat, or just whatever. Mm-hmm. It's a common trait among kids, unfortunately. But hopefully, through learning with their teachers and through their parents and librarians and educators, kids will learn to be kind to each other. And that's one of the things I wanted to address with this book, which is, why don't we try to increase kindness in this world instead of increasing meanness? Because there is already so much meanness. So try to work in a little bit of kindness into your communities and into your social circles. Yeah.
I think we've had a number of conversations, and one of the things that's always impressed me and impressed me about your stories is that there's a real connection with your family and the way you grew up. And it sounds, from what we've spoken about, there was a lot of challenges your family experienced coming here as immigrants from Korea. Mm-hmm. And, so a lot of obstacles that they had to overcome, but they did it with a lot of grace and lots of love. You may not have had all the things that your classmates had, but you didn't lack for love from what I can remember.
That's absolutely true, Jed. And I'm glad you mentioned it because, as a child of immigrants and as a kid who didn't grow up with a lot of money or a lot of stuff, when I watched TV and saw images of kids with their own rooms or kids with, boxes full of toys at home, I realized early on that my family was a little different. We didn't have that much stuff. But you know what? I didn't feel like I was lacking because you're right. There was a lot of love in my family. And also, this is really important for kids. We used our imagination to play a lot. And so we could literally imagine that the apartment building, the courtyard, was somewhere inside of a castle, or there was a little wooded area near the apartment, and we could imagine that it was an enchanted forest. And because we let our imaginations run free, it felt like a very rich childhood.
I think that's one thing. I'm hoping that all the screens and all the entertainment that kids are exposed to, and the things that we couldn't even imagine that we're able to see on a screen now. I hope that doesn't hurt our young people's imaginations.
Yeah, I know it's a big, big concern because so many kids and grown-ups too are stuck to the screens, whether it be the phone or iPad or computer. And it is a big concern because watching something on the screen is called passive entertainment. And what that means is you're not really exercising your brain all that much. You're just soaking up whatever's coming on screen, and you're just, digesting it in a passive way. Whereas using your imagination is a very active thing because you have to actively imagine cool things. You have to use your brain to conjure up fairy tales or imagine, fairies or imagine dragons or dinosaurs. So it's a huge difference. And I'm with you, Jed. I hope that kids will try to exercise their imaginations more, especially if they want to become storytellers or writers or even artists. The imagination is the number one tool. So you have to exercise it in order to be a good writer or a good artist.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of artists, the art in seashells, it's absolutely beautiful. All the art in all your books are beautiful. They're such talented illustrators. It's just amazing. But this is the first time you've worked with the two illustrators that contributed to this book.
That's right.
It sounds like there was a kind of a different or a special relationship with these illustrators.
Yes. So the publishing company, which is the company that made the book, Candlewick Press, they actually selected the two illustrators, and the illustrators' names are Stella Lim and Ji Hyuk Kim. They actually don't know each other. They were selected because they're both excellent at watercolors. And what's special about watercolors is that you just need a little bit of paint. You add water, and you can create something huge like the ocean or the beachscape, sand. So that's why Stella and Ji were selected as artists. And they're both located in South Korea, which is where my family originally came from. And so I'll tell you actually what my Korean name used to be. It was Haeyun. So I remember when I stepped into kindergarten, my name was Haeyun. And so a lot of kids and teachers had a hard time pronouncing my name. And I remember one day I was walking across the school courtyard and some kids started yelling, "Hey you!" And I was wondering, are they trying to say my name? And I looked and they were laughing and pointing at me. And yes, they were making fun of my name. And you might not think it's a big deal because "Hey you" and "Haeyun" sound very similar. But when you hear that day after day after day with kids laughing and pointing at you, it doesn't feel very good. And that's why when I went home, I asked my parents to change my name to make it sound more American. And so there was a woman in our building named Helen. And so they just added a name, the letter A at the end of Helen, and I became Helena. But now I use the name Haeyun as my middle name because I came to learn the meaning of Haeyun. It means intelligence and grace in Korean. I didn't know that. My dad told me this. And the reason why they named me Haeyun is because one of his favorite animals is the tiger, which has a lot of intelligence and a lot of grace. So they named me after a tiger. And I thought, that is so cool. So now Haeyun is my middle name.
That's awesome. I'm curious, how did your parents react when you came home and said, Haeyun is cool, but can I get an American name, please?
Yeah, I don't think they were very surprised because they saw that school can be a little bit tough for kids, especially if you don't quite fit in. And I think they really wanted to help me fit in. So they weren't all that surprised. So they gave me the name Helena, and that's what I started using, I think around later in first grade. And by second grade, everyone knew me as Helena. But my parents always called me Heiyun, and that's still what they call me at home. Yeah, so all of my family still calls me Heiyun.
I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but I've mentioned it on the podcast a lot that we've hosted international kids in our home, and we hosted a number of students from China. And all but one of those kids came here and adopted an American name. And I was always like, okay, but what's your Chinese name? And because that's your name, and that's what I want to use, if it's okay. And it's probably because I couldn't pronounce their names correctly in Chinese, but they would always say, don't try.
It is challenging, and I totally understand it. I understand that, foreign names from other countries are difficult to pronounce because every language has different ways of shaping words. And so, like, a lot of people have a hard time speaking French, for example, when they're learning French in school because they use different sounds. So I understand it. It is difficult. So that's really cool, though, that you hosted international students. That's a wonderful thing to do.
Oh, it was absolutely one of the best things that our family has done. We've met kids, and we've had kids become part of our family, and they are now living back home in China and Italy and the Netherlands.
Wow.
And India, and it was such a wonderful way to, and such an easy way to add somebody to our family. All the kids who live with us became part of our family, and they stay in touch with us. A little bit harder with the kids who are living back on mainland China right now because of restrictions. They're not able to use a lot of the internet. I actually, 3 days ago, two of the kids met up, and they're now young women, but they took a trip to Vietnam.
Oh,
and so I was able to have a little video conversation with both of them, and it was really lovely.
That sounds amazing. And do you think that someday you'll go to China and visit them?
Well, it was really interesting. Sophia, the first thing she said is, Dad, I want you to come to China and visit me. And I said, I'm not able to get on a plane and sit for 20 hours right now. It's going to be a few months before I can do that. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I had an accident. I tilted the phone down and showed her the leg braces, and she's like, what are you? Oh, she was very, was very upset. I didn't mean to spring it on her like that. But, I would love to visit them in China.
Sure.
It is absolutely a goal of mine. And, we did promise him if there's a wedding, we'll make it over. So
that would be a good reason to go.
There you go. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that would be so much fun. A reunion abroad.
Yeah. So this is your fourth book. I don't know if I asked you, did you always imagine becoming a children's author?
I did. I've been working on picture books ever since I began enjoying them around 6-7 years old. I won my first story contest at age 8. And so I've been kind of hooked on writing stories for kids since then. But, I'm at work on other things too, including a novel for grown-ups. So we'll see.
Wonderful. Yeah. Boy, what are you're working on a novel for grown-ups right now? Do you have another picture book in the works that maybe we can keep our fingers crossed that you'll come back to talk about?
Yeah, definitely. So my next picture book is going to be released in about a year and a half from now, I think. And that one is about the tradition that a lot of families have of removing our shoes before we enter the home. So I wanted to talk about that and kind of make a fun story around that. So that'll be coming out in early 2025.
Wonderful. Well, I'm really excited. Helena, where can people go to find out more about you, find out more about Sora Seashells and the Paper Kingdom, and all the wonderful stories that are coming from your imagination.
Yeah, thanks for asking. You can visit my website. If you just type in my name, Helena Khoury, probably the first thing that'll pop up is my website. And there's all this cool information there. You can see my books. And also you can see my dog, Sherwin. He's featured on a lot of places on my website, so you can check him out.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to plant this seed. Maybe it will grow into something, maybe not. But I think there could be a picture book about a really intelligent and graceful tiger.
Ooh, I like that.
There you go.
Maybe, yeah.
All right. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yes, that's a great idea, perhaps.
We've had a really fun time speaking to our friend, the author of Source Seashells. Our guest has been Helena Hayun Khoury. Helena, thanks so much for being back with us.
Thank you. What a pleasure it's been. Take care, everyone.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile and gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Jimmy Vee. Please be sure to check out There Are No Dinos in This Book. Also want to thank Helena Khoury. Please be sure to check out all of her books, especially Zora's Seashells. I want to thank my team, Chris Doherty, Daylene Advina Lopez, Ella Badea. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
Hola! Ni hao! Konnichiwa! Shalom! Ciao! Bonjour! Namaste! Jumbo! Hey! Woo! Hey everyone, come gather round. We got stories and magic and joy to be found, beaming out worldwide from Boston town, where books and love and laughter abound. From Reedville streets to the ocean wide, families reading side by side. Every page is a magic ride. Open a book and come inside.
Different voices, different lands, different dreams and different plans.
But every child understands love grows stronger hand in hand.
Reading with your kids tonight, turning little moments bright.
One more story, one more smile, making memories all the while.
Reading with your kids each day,
Helps your family find its way.
across the world we all believe.
Books can help our hearts achieve. From the loveliest neighborhood in Boston town, where kindness lifts everybody up, not down. We laugh, we learn, we sing along. Every family story belongs.
Authors, dreamers, moms and dads,
Grandparents too,
the best we've had.
come together.
Take a look,
The whole world opens in a book. Read, dream, love, believe. Read together every day. That's the real magic way.
reading with your kids tonight.
Shining
They're
light
like a million lights.
from Reedville out across the sea. One big reading family.
Reading with your kids, hooray!
Helping families every day.
So grab a book and come along.
Every story is a song.